For 15 long years, the Roman Republic lived in terror of one man. Hannibal Barca had crossed the Alps and slaughtered hundreds of thousands of Roman citizens on their own soil. Rome was bleeding and exhausted, but they refused to surrender. They realized that defeating Hannibal in Italy was impossible to win the Second Punic War. They had to strike at the heart of the Carthaginian Empire itself. The man chosen for this monumental task was Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Scipio Africanus. He was a brilliant young general who had carefully studied Hannibal's tactics. Scipio convinced the Roman Senate to let him take a massive invasion force across the Mediterranean Sea, landing directly in North Africa. This bold strategic move worked perfectly. The Carthaginian government panicked as Roman legions ravaged their homeland. They immediately recalled their greatest general. Hannibal was forced to abandon his campaign in Italy and sail back to Africa to defend the city of Carthage. The two greatest military minds of the ancient world finally met on the dusty plains of Zama in 202 BC. Before the battle commenced, Hannibal and Scipio met in the center of the field to negotiate. It was a legendary moment of mutual respect, but neither side was willing to compromise. The fate of the Mediterranean would be decided by iron and blood. Subscribe to Sword and Pen, where military might meets political power. Subscribe for more military history and technology content. Hannibal deployed his army in 3 massive lines. He placed his inexperienced mercenaries in the front, followed by Carthaginian citizen levies. In his third and final line, he positioned his hardened veterans from the Italian campaign, holding them in reserve. At the very front of his formation, Hannibal placed his most terrifying psychological weapon. He deployed 80 massive war elephants. The plan was simple but devastating. The elephants would charge forward and shatter the Roman infantry lines, creating chaos and panic. But Scipio was ready. He had trained his legions specifically to counter this exact threat. Instead of forming the traditional Roman checkerboard pattern, Scipio aligned his maniples in straight vertical columns. This created wide open lanes running directly through the Roman formation. To hide these gaps, he placed lightly armed skirmishers called velites at the front. When the battle began, Hannibal ordered the elephant charge. The massive beasts thundered across the plain, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. As they approached the Roman lines, Scipio ordered his men to blow massive brass horns and bang their swords against their shields. The deafening noise terrified the elephants. The Roman skirmishers threw their javelins and immediately retreated into the open lanes. The panicked elephants naturally took the path of least resistance, running straight down the empty corridors. They passed harmlessly through the Roman army and were quickly dispatched at the rear. Hannibal's greatest weapon had been neutralized in minutes. With the elephants dealt with, the heavy infantry engaged. The Roman hostati clashed violently with Hannibal's front line of mercenaries. The fighting was brutal and close quarters with short swords and heavy shields. The Romans slowly pushed the mercenaries back. As the mercenaries retreated, they collided with Hannibal's second line, causing confusion and friendly fire. However, the true brilliance of Scipio's plan was unfolding on the flanks. Before the battle, Scipio had secured an alliance with Massinissa, a powerful Numidian king. This gave the Romans a massive advantage in cavalry, a luxury they rarely possessed. The Roman and Numidian cavalry charged and quickly routed the Carthaginian horsemen, driving them far off the battlefield. In the center, the Roman infantry finally reached Hannibal's third line. These were his invincible veterans of Italy who had never tasted defeat. The combat ground to a bloody stalemate. The two lines of elite heavy infantry battered each other beneath the scorching African sun. For hours, the battle hung in the balance. Hannibal's veterans held their ground, proving their legendary status. But the tactical advantage had already shifted. The Roman and Numidian cavalry, having chased off their Carthaginian counterparts, wheeled around and returned to the battlefield. They charged directly into the rear of Hannibal's veteran line. It was a perfect repetition of the trap Hannibal had used to destroy the Romans at Cannae 14 years earlier. Now the Carthaginian army was the one surrounded and annihilated. The Carthaginian forces broke and fled. Hannibal himself barely escaped the slaughter, returning to Carthage to advise his government to surrender. The Battle of Zama marked the end of the Second Punic War. Carthage was stripped of its overseas territories, forced to pay a crushing war indemnity, and permanently forbidden from raising a military without Roman permission. Rome emerged from the conflict as the undisputed superpower of the Mediterranean world, setting the stage for the creation of the Roman Empire. The tactical brilliance of Scipio Africanus finally ended the nightmare of Hannibal Barca, securing a victory that echoed through eternity.